You are gonna die someday, and when that happens, someone needs to know who gets your stuff. Now, if you don't have a will, the court's gonna decide this, not your family, not your wishes, the court based on your state's law. I'm Mat Sorensen, attorney and CEO of Directed IRA, and in today's video, I'm gonna show you step by step how to create a simple, legally valid will in about 5 minutes. Now, an important note here, this is not a full estate plan. But if you have nothing in place right now, this is the fastest way to make sure your family isn't left guessing when you pass on. Let's walk through it. What we're creating here is a simple handwritten will, which is commonly called a holographic will. Now this is handwritten, signed by you. And in the vast majority of states, this alone makes that will legally valid and enforceable. But I want to make a key warning here. Do not type and print this. If you are typing and printing this, it does not constitute a handwritten holographic will. This must literally be in your handwriting if you want to use this simple approach. Now, there are 50 different state laws regarding handwritten wills, and the one you reside in is what applies in your situation. Most of these states do not require a witness or other formalities, but there are some that do, so make sure you're checking your state's requirement. But the bottom line here is this is your get something in place now strategy, but this is not a substitute for your full estate plan. All right, now let's walk through the 10 steps to create your handwritten holographic will. Step 1, the title and opening statement. At the top of the page, you're simply gonna write last will and testament, and then include your full legal name, a statement that you are of sound mind, and state the date. So for example, I, Mat Sorensen, being of sound mind, declare this to be my last will and testament. I revoke all prior wills and codicils. Now this statement alone makes it clear that this document controls and revokes any other statements that you may have made, promises, anything like that. This is your last will and testament. Step 2, you're going to identify your family. This is important. You must state whether you are married or not. If you are married, you must identify your spouse. You must state whether you have children or not. If you do have children, you need to list them. Now, why does this matter? It provides context to anyone looking at this will to determine whether you have disinherited someone or not. For example, if you have 3 kids and you only list 2 of them, a court could come in and say, you didn't specifically disinherit this one, so they're gonna get 1/3 of your estate as well. We wanna list them, and then if you do wanna disinherit them, you are gonna specifically say so. So, state your family, whether you're married or not, and then list the kids if you have any. And make sure you're just keeping it simple and get straight to the point and the facts. You do not need to get flowery and say my favorite daughter or my firstborn. No one cares, okay? Keep it simple and factual. Identify your family. Next, in step 3, you're gonna list who the executor is. This is one of the most important decisions you're gonna put in your will because the executor is the person who handles the estate, who pays down any debts and taxes that you might have, and is the one that is actually responsible and has the authority to distribute your assets. Now in your name, you're gonna write something like, I designate, then list the name of the person as executor of my estate. Now, best practices here is maybe to choose a spouse, a responsible adult. Maybe this is one of your kids that's good with money or that you really rely on and think would be financially and emotionally able to carry out these duties. And also consider listing a backup executor if your first name executor is deceased or not able to serve as executor. Now, whoever you list, one tip to be clear is list their name, their relationship to you, even if it's as a friend or a brother or sister, whoever it may be, and then also list the city and state where they reside. In step 4 here, what we're gonna list is a guardian if you have any minor children. Now, for those of you that have kids under age 18, this could be one of the most critical sections, is you are gonna list who you want to be as guardian of your child when you pass away. Now, you wanna name someone who would raise the children as you would after you have passed on. Couple ideas here of a guardian. You may think, oh, my parents would be guardians of my kids. That might not be the best outcome. They want to be grandparents. They don't want to go back to raising younger children. Maybe this is a sibling that you have that might have kids of the same age. Maybe this is a close friend. Maybe this is a cousin. Whoever you are close with that you feel has the values to raise your kid is who I want you to be thinking about when you list a guardian here. Keep in mind, this is not determinative of who you list. The court ultimately decides who will be guardian for the children based on who steps forward and based on the best interest of the kids. But they will weigh heavily, and a huge factor is going to be who you list as guardian in your will. And if you don't list someone as the guardian, the court is going to decide, and your family might fight over this. Your brother or sister might be fighting over this. Your spouse's parents and your parents might be fighting over this. This is the last thing you want to leave, is infighting, disaster, and turmoil. Your family and loved ones is going to be getting over the grief of you passing away. So the ability to list a clear guardian who you wanted takes these disputes off the table, and your family and the court has a more clear understanding who should serve as guardian for your kids. In step 5 here, we're going to list specific gifts. Now we're going to get onto your other assets here that you may be distributing, but if there's specific assets that you have that you want to give to a specific person, we want to list those first. This could be jewelry, this could be a vehicle, maybe it's the boat you own with your brother or your sister that you share. Maybe this is a family heirloom, a collectible, maybe you have a business partner and a business interest. And if there's a specific asset that someone specifically gets, we want to list this in this section 5. For example, you would say, I leave my guitar to John so-and-so in this city and state. But whatever the asset is, the goal here is that I've identified it enough so no one's going to dispute which asset we're talking about. But I do not want you to overthink this. If this slows you down, skip it for now. The goal here with this holographic handwritten will is speed and clarity to get something in place. Remember, you can always update this later. Step 6, this is a big one here. We're going to talk about who is getting the rest of your estate. This is the distribution section and the core of the will. You need something called a residue clause that says who gets everything else. So we've said who specifically gets assets, and then the will is going to say, the remainder of my estate is going to go to these individuals in these percentages. Now let's talk about first how to approach this if you're currently married. If you are married, you may want your spouse to get everything first, and that is common, and just say that. If I am to pass away, my surviving spouse receives the entirety of my residue estate. Then you can say, if my spouse is not living, then the assets will go to my children or other beneficiaries here under these percentages and under these rules. For those of you that are single or your spouse is predeceased you, you're just going to go straight to your children or your other beneficiaries. For those of you with children, whether you have a spouse and your kids are your contingent beneficiary, or you're single and your kids are your primary beneficiary, we want to specify how our kids inherit these assets. Now, the most common way to do this is to identify a percentage. Let's say, for example, you have 2 children. Each of your kid would receive 50% of the estate. Now, it doesn't have to be that. It could be 60-40. It could be 90-10. It could be 100% and 0. You get to decide this. This is your wealth and your legacy you're leaving. So you get to decide in this last will and testament. So for example, you would say something like, I leave the remainder of my estate to my kids to be split evenly 50-50, or 25%, 25%, 25%, 25% if I have 4 kids. And the key goal here is to make it crystal clear who gets what. Now, in a handwritten will, you might not get to every contingency in every situation. If we were doing a full estate plan, we would say, what happens if one of my kids passes away? And I have 4 kids. Do now the 3 kids inherit my estate? Or does the kid who passed away, does their 1/4 go down to their kids, my grandchildren, or to their surviving spouse, okay? We can be more specific in a more full estate plan, but for a holographic will, you might not get to this level of detail. In step 7 here, this is where if you want to go into a little more detail about contingent beneficiaries, you can do so. Now, a common way to do this is to state, if my beneficiaries listed above are already deceased at the time I pass away, then I want their share to go per stirpes to their beneficiaries. What does that mean? That means if I have the 4 kids and I say each one's going to get 25% and one of those kids predeceases you before you pass away, per stirpes means that their 1/4 share will go to their heirs, not to the other 3 kids. Now, you may not want that. If you don't want that, you need to say that. But Per stirpes is a very common way to handle this, and you can simply say that if one of my beneficiaries passes away, I want their share to go per stirpes to their heirs, and that could be a simple way to handle contingent beneficiaries. In step 8, you're going to identify funeral and some final wishes. This could include things like whether you want to be cremated or buried or not, the type of service you want, whether that's military or religious, any special requests you might have. This section is optional though, so if you're trying to move fast and get this will done, just keep it brief or just skip this and let's go to step 9. Now we're on to step 9, which is a critical step, and this is the one that makes it all official. We are going to sign and date this last will and testament, and this is what makes it valid. So you're going to need to actually sign your name, put your John Hancock on it, date this last will and testament, and then if your state is one of the few that needs a witness or a notary, make sure you have someone there that witnesses it and signs it, or the notary. Most states don't require that, so you're always going to want to look up your specific state. In most states, your simple signature alone makes this will valid. And last but not least, we need to store this will and tell someone about it. If you don't tell anyone about this will or where it can be located, they will not know what to do when you pass on. So once this is created, make sure your executor knows, let them know you have chosen them as your executor, give them a copy of it, that lets them know what you're planning to do, and let them know where the original document resides. Remember, your executor must present the original in probate, and they need to know that it exists and where it resides. Before we put a bow on this, I want to give an important reality check here. A will does not avoid probate. So many people get this confused. Remember, with the will, we're simply saying who gets your assets when you die. But this will still has to be approved in probate court, in a public process, with a judge. This is not like a revocable living trust, which is much more preferred, that does not have probate court. You do not need a judge to approve it. Your assets can continue on, and your trustee simply goes and distributes. This will is still going to go to probate court. But the nice thing about this will and getting something done is we are clear about who is getting our assets. Many assets are going to pass outside of your will. These are called payable on death accounts. This includes your retirement accounts. This includes life insurance. This includes bank accounts, credit union accounts, other investment accounts. These accounts are payable under what's called the beneficiary designation, not your will. So when you put in there, my kids are going to get 1/4 of my estate, and you have 4 kids, they better be listed on your beneficiary designation, on your bank account, on your retirement account, on your life insurance policy. Those beneficiary designations control for those specific assets, not your will. If your ultimate goal is to avoid probate entirely and have more rules and contingencies in your estate plan, you should be looking at a trust-based estate plan using a revocable living trust, sometimes called a family trust. But for now, if you followed these steps, you now have a simple will in place that puts you ahead of most people. But remember, this is the down and dirty starting point. This is not the end. If you have real assets, real estate, a blended family, retirement accounts, life insurance, and you want to avoid probate, you should be looking at getting a full estate plan and trust done. If you want help getting this structured the right way, my team at KKOS Lawyers works with clients across the country, and you can book a call using the link in the description below. And we'll go over the benefits of a full estate plan, the revocable living trust, the powers of attorneys, all these documents that help you leave a legacy behind. And if you found this helpful, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future strategies on building wealth and protecting your assets. I'm Mat Sorensen. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.